I'm managing a small portfolio in Chicago, just like my clients are. And I know what leasing's about and what turnovers are about and what, you know what I mean? Like, and so we're testing these same services in my business, seeing what's working, what's not, and then going out to the marketplace saying, we know we know you have this problem. Would you be interested in letting us help you?
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Mark Kappleman is the co-founder of realestateaccounting.co, who spent 7 years working in public accounting for top firms like PwC and Ernst & Young. Mark, welcome to the show.
Michael, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Hey, it's great to have you. And before we get into everything about your business, tell us a little bit about your career journey leading up until this point.
Yeah, I guess, I'll take it back to college. Went to college, wasn't sure what, I always knew I wanted to get into business. I'm not sure why, just knew I wanted to get into business, but wasn't sure what that really meant, quite honestly. And had a couple uncles that were accountants that said, hey, look, if you don't know what you want to do in business, get your accounting degree because it's the language of business. It's the most common P&Ls and balance sheets, which I didn't know what that meant at the time. I think in hindsight, it was great advice from these two gentlemen. And they said, look, and you'll come out of school, you'll have a credential, a CPA. It's a way to you'll have job security. So I said, okay. And that's how I picked accounting. And then at the school I went to, it was really the big four. Yeah, you said I worked at Ernst & Young and PwC, which is true. They had a huge presence there. They started recruiting. You got job offers early, and it was either go into audit or tax. Audit or tax, it was just like, I think that's what 80, 90% of my classmates did. And so I went into audit because I think, most accountants know you're either a tax person or you're an everything else person, and I was an everything else person. And so did audit for a few years. Then I got introduced to transaction advisory services, M&A due diligence, which a lot of these companies offer, the service they offer. And I didn't realize that was a thing. So I kind of interned with Ernst & Young in this group and was like, wow, I never really loved audit. I just thought that was audit or tax. And so then I did that for a few more years. And then I can't remember exactly when, but I'm like 3-4 years into public accounting, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which so many people in real estate have read this. But there's this line in the book that says, why climb the corporate ladder when you can own the ladder? And it kind of just, something clicked there. I realized I was climbing this huge ladder when maybe I could just buy and own a smaller ladder, which hopefully would become a big ladder. And it just led to this springboard of interest in real estate. Fast forward to 2013, I've now worked at Ernst & Young and PwC for 7 years. My wife and I started investing in real estate. We started flipping houses. We flipped the house. We bought a single family home. We made some money on that flip, more than I think we'd ever made at single one point in time being accountants. And it was just like, oh my gosh, we can do this. So then we started flipping more houses and we started buying small multifamily. And so now at this point, I've left the big four. I went to work at a tech startup as their finance guy. And so I'm doing accounting by day. I'm flipping real estate nights and weekends. And then it's like, oh, hey, by the way, you still have to do the accounting for the real estate business. Forget all the accounting I have to do during the day at like my day job. But then, I'm having to do all the accounting. So then, I'm constantly reading. I love self-help books. Read the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And it said something to the effect of, focus on revenue generating activities and outsource the rest of the admin. And so for my real estate business, the accounting was the admin, even though that was my primary. And so I actually outsourced my books 2 different times to bookkeepers. And it was just a really bad experience. The communication was bad. The response times were bad. I probably had high expectations because I'm a CPA, but they weren't understanding closing statements and refis. And I was flipping houses with draws, and it was over their heads. And so then started looking around to say, hey, who's just like specialized in real estate accounting? And couldn't find anyone. That's really where the idea was born. This is probably like 15, 16 timeframe. I don't remember exactly. And then, 18, 19, I started talking with my now co-founder, who's one of my best friends. Actually, we grew up together, roommates in college. And we just started telling him. I started telling him about the problem, and he said we should start a company around that. And that's how it started. That was about 5 years ago.
I love hearing those stories. I love the journey is sometimes not enjoyable or not exactly what you thought you'd be doing. But if you keep paying attention and you keep moving towards your passions, you eventually figure it out, depending on where you are in that whole trajectory.
Yeah.
You got back to your passions of being in business, but you also learned all of these great things along the way and found an incredible market opportunity for the business that you're now in today.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, people always ask, well, how did, that same question, how did you get, and it's like, when I look back on it, the progression looks kind of natural and linear, but at the time it was like anything but, I thought I was going to be a partner at a Big Four accounting firm. That was all I wanted. And then all of a sudden read this book and I'm like, oh man, do I have it wrong? Then I thought I was going to be this huge real estate developer. And then, that's not easy either. And so then I wanted to leave my day job, get more full-time to real estate. And then this idea, I didn't even know outsourced bookkeeping was a thing. Honestly, I did not know it was a thing until my now co-founder, he had started a company before. And he's like, oh yeah, we've been outsourcing our books for years. I manage the accounting team. It works great. And I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. And so then when we were talking about bookkeeping, I was like, look, 2 things I know the best are accounting and real estate. So if we're going to do this, I want to go into that niche. I think we'll have a competitive advantage because not only am I an accountant, but I really understand the operations of raising money and doing deals and draws and all these things that I think the average accountant, even if they're a real estate accountant, has not actually done. So yeah, it's kind of crazy that this is where we ended up. Never would have dreamt it, but having a blast and I love it.
We'll get back to the interview right after this word from our sponsor. Get ready to fast forward your bookkeeping business into the future with the Successful Bookkeeper Technology Showcase on June 22nd, 2023. This one-day virtual event is the perfect opportunity to connect with industry experts, leading technology providers, and find solutions and efficiencies for your business. But that's not all. Our keynote presenter, Teresa Slack, co-founder of Financially, will share the technology stack that has helped them build a near 7-figure bookkeeping business. You'll learn about the latest and greatest apps, software, and features that can take your business to the next level. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to revolutionize your bookkeeping business. Register today at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/showcase and join us on June 22nd. See you there. Thank you for hearing from our sponsor. Now let's get back to the interview. I love it. And I think there's, the whole niching is a big conversation, and there's definitely pros and cons to any type of business that you decide to set up. But 100%, when you have that much deep experience in an industry and there's a marketplace that needs the service and experience and knowledge that you have, that's a good combination. And you can go so much further, so much deeper with those potential customers and clients than anyone else in the market. So you can really, really differentiate yourself when you do that, I believe. And so congratulations on discovering it. And I always love hearing the stories. We've had lots of examples of this on this podcast, and there's many podcasts that talk all about that. But when you keep, it's almost like you're reinventing yourself, but you keep going to your North Star. It's like, it's like you're taking actions, you're finding things, you're experimenting, you're looking in those places because you deep down, you have purpose.
Yeah.
And you're clear about that purpose. And so it's always refreshing and inspiring to hear. And if you keep at it long enough, you often come out with that breakthrough or breakaway opportunity where you then get on to the next thing. And of course, everything you talked about, there were challenges, from school to working at the Big Four to running your real estate business to now. There's always challenges. Nothing's easy. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the quote is, but it's something about most businesses don't make it because people just give up, because it's hard. I mean, it is what it is, but
they don't build themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't build themselves well.
But I think even something you said there, Michael, I'll just expand on one, which is, 70% of our client base now is owner operators, people that actually own and manage, because that's kind of what we were doing. So it's even more so what you're talking about just really going deep, because I know the problems those people have. So then we kind of know what problems to address in our service offering. And the latest thing we're doing, which is just kind of a sidebar, is a lot of our clients are saying, oh, you can do the accounting. Do you have anybody that could just help? Because a lot of our clients are property managers. I'm sure we're going to get into that. But they're also saying, hey, do you have anybody that can help with leasing? Do you guys have any help that can help with maintenance coordination? And so now we're starting to offer that as a service, because again, I'm managing a small portfolio in Chicago, just like my clients are. And I know what leasing's about and what turnovers are about and what, you know what I mean? And so we're testing these same services in my business, seeing what's working, what's not, and then going out to the marketplace saying, we know we know you have this problem. Would you be interested in letting us help you? And it's resonating.
I love it. It's just another opportunity within a niche that you can keep pivoting inside the niche, offering additional services or advice and experience and directing them to people that you've vetted yourself, right? You work in that industry long enough, you're going to see, I mean, you're only going to get wiser because you're in it. You're playing the game every single day. And you're a really unique case because you're actually one of your customers in a way, right?
Yep.
So you deeply know yourself. There could be challenges with that. It's hard to sort of look at the label from the inside the bottle. Sometimes I'm sure you've experienced that, but you're going to see also in the industry. And I don't think a lot of people think about this in terms of what you see happening with your clients, the people they're dealing with, who pays who. You're becoming your own Dun & Bradstreet in your brain almost, right? Because of the transactional experience that you're seeing out there in the marketplace as well. Different vendors where people have problems with, where they've maybe had breakaways with. So you get to see a lot of that and then relay that back to your customers. How could they live without you?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible how much data we actually have. I mean, it's not our data, but data that we're seeing. At this point, we've got pretty good scale. So it's pretty interesting.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about, you started the business. How have you grown the business? I mean, do you focus on the specific inside that market? There's real estate investors, there's agents, there's other real estate groups. You mentioned property managers. How did that look? Did it turn out the way you thought it would turn out, or did you have to pivot?
It's a great question. I love this question because it's been one of the biggest learnings for me, which is, again, the original thesis was people flipping a couple houses a year on QuickBooks that need help. Okay, because that was kind of me when I first started this, or one small multifamily deal. And so that was the thesis, and we got the website up, and that's what we thought. And all of a sudden, the leads we started generating were property management companies, where they were significantly larger than these small rehabbers. There's nothing wrong with those people. I was that person, but it's a very different operation. And then we realized that, for us, the bigger opportunity was then property management. And so think the property manager that, manages 500 single family homes or 4 300-unit apartment buildings. It runs the gamut. So even within real estate, we are even hyper niched within property management. And then I think, like I said, almost 70% of our business is with people that both own and manage. And the reason we focus there again is that that's really my and our competitive advantage. We've done the deals. We know that they've got to report out to LPs. We know what that reporting probably needs to look like, the cadence. We think we have a unique competitive advantage, and the numbers kind of show that. And so we tried with brokerages, and we've had a couple small brokerage clients. But again, it's just, I think with a niche, you see the same issues over and over and over and over again. And now we can develop these standard processes that 90% of the processes that we establish as standard apply to every single client. And then, of course, every client has a few nuances that we need to take care of them. But I mean, it's just the same issues, the same softwares, and then we become really good at solving these issues.
Yeah, that's key. You get good at it, and I guess too, like they're a niche within a niche within a niche. Right. Almost is kind of like people might say, well, why would I do one or do the other? I think it comes down to a lot of the times, like, everyone's going to have things that are good about the niche or the niche within the niche within the niche. Everything, there's going to be good things. There's going to be bad things. It's like, which, does one outweigh? Like the ones like dealing with brokerages, there might be some problems there, challenges that come up, whatever they might be. Some people might really be okay with those, whereas another person might not, where, that's part of finding the work you like to do. And that's the freedom as being a business owner, is that you don't want to go out there and do things you don't like to do, right?
Yeah.
You want to find the best of the best. And obviously there's always challenging things to tackle. It sounds like you've really found a good one, and it's a lot of opportunity in that space as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, I was, people always throw around crazy stats, but I was just Googling something that said the U.S. private real estate market is $40 trillion. And I don't know how many rental apartments there are, but I think home ownership's going down, rental percentage is going up. I just don't see anybody not renting apartments anytime soon. And for that matter, about 75% of our business is residential and 25% of it's commercial. And so, and that's even another niche within a niche within a niche within a niche, right? Because within commercial, you have CAMREX and things that are super unique that the multifamily property accountant would know. And I think, from my perspective, it's just like if you're going to go to the doctor, you want to go see a specialist that does plastic surgery if you need to get some incisions done, because you think they're going to be the best at covering the scar and make it look like it was never there. And I think if you're a real estate investor, would you like to, or a property manager, do you want to work with a general accountant or a general bookkeeper, or somebody that all they do is real estate? And I think for me, the answer is obvious, which is the latter. And so Absolutely. It doesn't mean that, I remember early in my career, even at PwC, it was like, hey, Mark, do you want to be a specialist, like in financial services or oil and gas or real estate, or do you want to be a generalist? And I kind of always thought generalist, like, hey, I want to be able to address everybody. I don't want to have to be able to turn away clients because they're in an industry that I'm not a specialist in. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just what I've learned from starting REA is that there's a lot of benefit to being a specialist. And it doesn't mean there's not a benefit to being a generalist, but I know that there's a benefit to being a specialist.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
It totally does. And I agree with it. And it's sometimes people go, well, how do I define my niche? How do I find the niche? And it's, your story is a very good one and a clear one. It's sometimes the niche finds you and you don't even know where it's going to be. It's not like someone listening to this right now would go, I'm just going to I'm going to do exactly what Mark's done. I'm going to go and start in this niche. Now they could, but it might not be enjoyable. It might not have any expertise or knowledge, whatever the case may be. And so I think it's when you're entering into any market, it's like you're observing that. Is this an industry where I do have some transferable knowledge? do I like working on it? Are there comparables? You mentioned software and apps and different things in the industry.
Yep.
That industry could have a completely different stack of technology that, again, those all have to be learned and you have to gain experience doing those things.
Yeah, I think it's because, again, I've thought about it a lot. It's a function of interest meets knowledge and some sort of intersection of those two. Does it have to be the industry that you just love? I'm not sure, right? I happen to get super interested in real estate and went super deep. And then it just was like, wow, well, I am a specialist now at real estate. And I've been doing accounting for X number of years. You know, I would encourage people, if they're trying to pick an industry, just like, what do I uniquely have a lot of information about? Yeah, we talked to a guy the other day that has a huge not-for-profit outsourced bookkeeping company. I forget why he chose not-for-profits, but somehow it found him, and that's all they do. And the guy has a huge business. Like,
yeah,
I mean, really impressive. I've never even thought about doing not-for-profits, right? And how many even within real estate, there's hotels. We don't touch hotels today. That's a whole other thing. So I think an industry where you just have a unique competitive advantage, because I think, people look at my background and realize that, hey, these guys know what they're talking about. They've actually done this. And then when you have a conversation now, when you can validate that and you can talk the jargon and say NOI and some of these terms that most accountants or anybody's going to go, what's that? And I think people pick up on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing that we haven't talked about on this podcast very often, maybe back in the day, but it is around marketing and your market. But if we talk about problems, there's the problems that they speak about, like any industry, any client, there's going to be problems that they speak about. There's going to be problems they don't speak about, the unspoken problem. Those are the ones that they don't want people to know, they're not willing to share, right? That's a deeper, more painful problem. But then there's the unknown problem. And if you have a lot of unknown problems of your prospective clients. They don't even know many types of problems that they're going to have. And those are the most valuable problems to be able to solve. The unspoken and the unknown problem. And that's where, when you're in with a client, you can help identify that. It just leads to you being able to sell what you do a lot more effectively when you can unpack for them. Here's what some of the unknown problems that you may not even be aware of that we solve inside of our business. I mean, there's not many else in your industry, I would guess, that could actually have a conversation about the unspoken and the unknown problem.
Yeah, I it's a great point. I look at some of the people that we hear about when we're in sales processes, and I look up their backgrounds, and I don't see any real estate experience. It doesn't mean they're not a good real estate accountant. I don't think they've lived and breathed it like we have. And I think, on that note, I've always just, when thinking about a business and REA, the best advice I've ever got is just focus on providing value, solving problems, really listening, and just, if you provide value to the marketplace, it doesn't really become a price. It's just like I was talking about with my wife the other day, and she was talking about something. She's like, oh, it's a total ripoff. It's $1,000 a month. And I'm like, yeah, that's just perception. Imagine if you were providing $1,500 worth of value, or they were, you'd think it was a great deal. And so that's really what we focus on, is just how do we provide value? How do we solve their problems for these owner operators that we know that are stretched thin? And we know that they make all their money by doing deals and not by doing accounting. And so if we can simplify that part of their life, they're never going to leave unless there's some darn good reason that they don't have an accounting need anymore, which is not going to be likely unless they get out of the business.
Absolutely. So you've got really, really low attrition. That's another benefit, right? It's like, why, give them all the reasons to stay and just to be happy, right?
Yeah.
I love that strategy. It's an interesting one. We have a technology showcase, which is coming up in June this year, where we're showcasing a whole bunch of technology for the bookkeeping industry. One of the companies that's going to be showcased there is called SparkPay. Now, SparkPay actually has a niche in your industry. Property managers, they've kind of gone down these very niche avenues. They're a payment app, right? Bookkeepers, accountants, and business owners, companies use them to be able to pay one another digitally versus using checks. Now, there's other companies that do this in the marketplace, but when I spoke to one of the founders, he was like, we've specifically said, we're going to go niche. We're going to find the areas that nobody else is going into and really solve those the best we possibly can. Because realistically, they don't even need they don't need general business. If they just really focused on and no other company was focused on those areas. So they get the expertise, they solve the problem brilliantly, they have low attrition, all the things that you're talking about. And they do a fantastic job, and their customer service is like 5-star, because that's where they put their investment, is in really solving the problem and also incredible customer support and service, and they're doing fantastically. So another great example of if you do the time and think about it, it's not like they just woke up one day and said, oh, this is the way we're going to go. They learned about it, they pivoted, they figured it out. But an interesting one that popped into my head is, that's one of the industries you deal with. You may even know SparkPay.
Yeah,
most definitely. Come to You'll see them at the Technology Showcase, June 22nd. And if anyone listening wants to register for that showcase, do not miss out. That's at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/showcase. And come along. That's coming up. We're excited about it.
Awesome.
Fantastic stuff. So now you're here, you're doing all this stuff, some really interesting things that we've learned about you. Where to now? What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I think, look, we're only 5 years into this, so we feel like we're just getting started. So I think, we are full steam ahead, hiring like crazy, growing like crazy. People always say that, but it's just been a constant stream. And like you said, I feel like we only get better because we just learn and learn and learn. So at the moment, it's hyper-focused on the accounting. We are now starting to branch into this virtual property management assistant role, because we know that if you're an entrepreneur and you finally outsourced your accounting, you've got some other tasks in the business that are not allowing you to go find more clients and grow your business. And some of those are within our industry: leasing, maintenance coordination, and renewals. And so we started out with bank recs, AP, and reporting on the accounting side, and now we're focused on leasing, maintenance, and renewals on the operations side. So that's the next pivot. And I think, for us as a company, or not pivot's not the right word, the next branch that we're shaking a little bit. And I think our company, or our North Star, I just don't see that ever not being anything but real estate. And there's just so many opportunities as you think around the real estate pie for financing and insurance. And, there's just all sorts of ideas where you can continue to add value. Oh, you're a real estate investor? Who are you using to get your next loan? Here's our preferred vendors. Here's our, you need insurance for that building, because I know you do, because you can't close without insurance if you're getting a loan. Here's our insurance vendors. So I think there's a ton of opportunities.
Sounds like it. And it reminds me of, you mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the author of that. Another one of the people that I've followed in the past, haven't lately, I don't watch a lot of television, but I loved his show, The Prophet, Marcus Lemonis.
Yeah. He's in Chicago, actually, where I'm located. Yeah, okay. He lives in Chicago.
You hang with him?
No, I haven't seen him, but I see his billboards, awesome. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Love Marcus Lemonis. Great story. But what he talks about, and it's, you were mentioning, is you've got that hub. And then now you're developing your spokes. Solid hub, solid spokes, keep adding them. And that it's just, you're leveraging that core of the real estate to keep adding value to your customers. I mean, it's brilliant. And you're doing some of the other things that he really talks about, people, process, and your product, right? It doesn't have to be complicated.
Nope.
And the less complicated that it is, it's actually better. You're building something that has some simplicity to it, but you're adding strong systems and process foundation that will just enable you to grow to whatever size you want.
Yeah. And I mean, and then as we grow, we just continue to buy more real estate ourselves because we're just as bullish on the industry as we've ever been. So, we're walking the walk, and now we use our services on the assets that we own. So it's pretty cool. And it's just kind of, to your point, I think that wheel and spoke is such a great way to call it as an analogy.
Yes. Well, Mark, this has been absolutely fantastic. If our listener that's listening in right now and absolutely loving hearing your wisdom, if they wanted to learn more about you, get more information, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, website is by far the best, www.rea, real estate accounting, rea.co. You could book a call with us if interested. I'm somewhat active on LinkedIn. That'd be the other place to kind of follow. And we've got a semi-active LinkedIn page for REA. So those would be the spots to follow us.
Beautiful. Well, we will certainly have those in our show notes. And Mark, I want to thank you for your generosity on coming on the show, sharing your journey with us. On behalf of our listeners, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure, and thanks for having me.
The pleasure is all ours. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.